Dreamforce. It's our biggest event of the year, and this year, instead of you coming to Dreamforce, Dreamforce is coming to you. With a celebratory keynote, a week-long learning event, and personalized meetings, this year's Dreamforce will be a chance to come together, share stories from this challenging year, and celebrate all of our trailblazers who are succeeding in our new work from anywhere world together. And that is just what we'll be doing in our special Leading Through Change Dreamforce series. Over the next month, we'll be supercharging our Leading Through Change shows as we build up to Mark Benioff's keynote on December 2nd and Dream TX later this month. Before we begin, I'd like to make sure you have the chance to go to dreamforce.com to stay up to date with all of our free, publicly available Dreamforce to You 2020 content. Hello. I'm TRACY PRENTISS, and welcome to another one of our lively weekly conversations as part of our Leading Through Change series. It's really a chance for you to get to hear from leaders across industries who are doing their best to get through these challenging times and to support their communities. Before we start our conversations with our guest today, I'd like to preview the next hour. I will be interviewing Siemens Smart Infrastructure Regional Solutions and Services CEO, Dave Hopping, Comfy Acting CEO, Erica Eaton, and the chairman of our advisory board here at Salesforce, Alexandre Dayon. We will be discussing how to address changing employee expectations, how to build safe and trusted workplaces with technology, and how to keep employees engaged in the new normal. Then, we'll dive into a demo highlighting the Safe Workplace partnership between Siemens and Salesforce. After that, we'll close with a special performance by Josh Stone. So for those of you watching on Twitter, you'll want to join us at salesforce.com/live to see that portion of the show. And as we do every week on Leading Through Change, we want to help those who need it the most. Millions of people already rely on the United Nations Food Program for the food they need to survive, and COVID-19 is making conditions even worse. This ongoing pandemic could double the number of people suffering from severe hunger by the end of this year. To prevent hunger epidemic, the World Food Program is scaling up to reach 138 million people across 83 countries with life-saving support. So, if you can, please do go to salesforce.com/WFP for World Food Program and join us in ensuring that the world's most vulnerable people have enough to eat during this critical time. With that, it's my pleasure to welcome our guests for today, Erica, Dave, and Alex. Welcome and thank you for being with us today. We're living in challenging times. What looked like a decrease in infection numbers around the world over the summer, now it looks like infection numbers are rising. We're talking about local lockdowns again. This world that we're living in is not easy for anyone, either professionally or personally. So Erica, first question to you. What is the current economic and social situation in the world? And importantly, how do you think people are feeling?
Thank you so much, Tracy. I think as you mentioned, there's just so much uncertainty that we're seeing, both from an economic environment and how corporations are managing economic downturn and business performance. But more importantly, like you said, really the emotional turmoil that we've seen put on people and employees over the last 6 months in managing COVID. And I think what we're also seeing, as you mentioned, is as cases rise, that there's really, different situations all over the world. And so when we think about the pressure that puts on business leaders to really be managing almost at a hyper-local level, it really puts pressure on, and how are we going to continue to build confidence and trust within our workforce?
Yeah. Trust is key, definitely. And next question for Dave. What are the new employee expectations of employers, particularly as it relates to the new workplace?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I couldn't agree more with Erica's comments. But when it comes to the employees, we're seeing that our employees and our customer employees really want their cake and eat it too. And what I mean by that is, it's changed over the last few months. It started out being all about safety. How can the employees be safe in the workplace? And how can they work remotely, flexible? Now, recently what we're seeing is we have certain employees that start wanting to come back for the personal contact, wanting to come back for more collaboration. And so it's about how do we manage these expectations that have changed from being totally remote and safe to continuing to want to have flexibility in how they work, but also have the opportunity to come back and work amongst their peers. And we're living that in my own business, my own company. Our employees wanted to be remote. They didn't feel safe in the office. Then they wanted to come back, but we made people wear masks all the time. And then now all of a sudden they don't want to wear masks all the time. So they want more flexibility of when to wear masks if they're social distancing. So it's about managing all of these changes over time and really having both, having a flexible workforce, but also having the opportunity for them to engage when needed.
Sure, that's a lot of new responsibility in the world for employers. Alex, do you think companies are aware of this new responsibility that comes with the new employee expectations?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had the opportunity to travel last past couple of months around the world between Europe and the US, and all the CEOs I've met are clearly now aware that the world has changed, has changed forever. We're not going to the old world. I think at the beginning we are thinking, oh, we hope we're going to be back to the normal, but there's no new normal. We are in a normal, and I think clearly CEOs are now reinventing their businesses and also listening to the expectations of their employees. And it's really a big shift. It's not just a shift about working digitally in the cloud, but there are other things that now need to be baked into the way we do business. And the first one, which is the topic of today, is safety. Physical safety. If you return to the office, you have to be safe. Emotional safety, because working digitally is a very different world. So safety now is part of the new way to construct a company. And the second new element is obviously related to everything we're seeing right now in California, for example, is environment. And there's clearly another leg to that stool, a third leg to that stool, which is sustainability, that is now really, really clearly an expectations by employee to work with brands who have a purpose around not only creating business value for their core products and services, but offering a safety place to work and being a sustainable environment. And to that extent, I think these three things are really the foundation of our partnership between Salesforce and Siemens.
Well said. So employers are facing these new responsibilities, and in order to have these new responsibilities well understood and undertaken to create a safe workplace, technology is necessary to develop and implement the new processes that Alex mentioned. So question for you, Erica, what is the new work model of the future, and what are the opportunities in this redesigned workplace?
Well, I think as Alex was saying, we're really moving into a new model of work. And I think based upon those increased expectations of employees for more flexibility, I think we're really seeing CEOs and organizations begin to adopt much more flexible and mobile working models. And so I think what that means is not that the office is dead, but actually quite contrary, that we really expect there to be an incredible amount of intentionality between why employees will be coming into the office. And when we think about our own personal experiences, about what we might have lost out on in the last 6 to 8 months as we work through Zoom and within our homes, it's been a lot around the collaboration. It's been around culture building. It's been around, innovation and relationship building. And so I think there'll just be, again, a lot of intentionality behind why we come into the office and how we then therefore design for that experience and the outcomes that we want to really be creating. Because I think we've proven employees can be productive all over the world. And so it's really about thinking about how we're really empowering them for the outcomes like Alex was talking about.
Oh, Erica, what you just say is actually very interesting, because it's all about mixing physical and digital at the workplace. And in CRM, we use the word omnichannel. When customers go from your website to your store, it's an omnichannel customer journey. Well, today the workplace is becoming omnichannel. So I just wanted to throw that idea in response to Erica's comment about the fact that the world now, the workplace is actually multifaceted between digital and physical.
Definitely agreed. And building on what Alex just said, Erica, can you say a little bit more, please, about the intentionality of not only redesigning workplaces, but also the relationships between the teams actually doing the work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that was interesting is in the early, back in kind of the April, May timeline, when corporations started thinking about, how they might bring employees back, we saw, very by the quantitative, I would say, right, where we said, 30% capacity limits, and so I'm going to have certain teams come in. And I think as we've evolved through thinking about, again, this intention, we've really started to see much more interesting models about, what again are the relationships we're trying to bring? Where are we trying to sort of spark innovation, spark, culture building? And how does that think not just about capacity limits and numbers of people within buildings, but again, the actual relationships that we want to be creating across teams to, again, drive real business outcomes?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that intentionality is key. And Dave, over to you, just building on what Erica said. The recent months have been proof that we can be productive. How do you think your customers are bringing together the remote flexibility and the scalability to make sure that that personal contact is there? And how are you approaching that at Siemens?
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, to be very, very honest, but it's also quite an opportunity. What we're seeing is we have to keep in mind there's major differences across different vertical markets. If you're talking an office building versus a manufacturing site versus a university, the needs are substantially different. I mean, manufacturing site, there's not an option to work from home. They are coming into the facility. And the point here is that I think technology is playing a major, major role in making all of this happen, and especially related to what I was talking about earlier regards to the flexibility that the employees are looking for. So keep in mind, if you're a building owner, and I don't care if it's manufacturing, university, or an office building, how are you going to bring people back into the building safely? How are you going to manage that? How are you going to know if people are coming into the building that they're well and they're not ill? There's technologies for that. How are you going to coordinate and schedule people coming into the facility as a building manager so you can maintain social distancing? And then when they're in the building, how are you going to make sure that they are going to the right place to work, that they're working in a safe environment? And then the other piece from a technology standpoint is the employees. They want to come back, maybe not all the time, but they want the flexibility to come back to collaborate. And how are they going to have the updated information to know where to go, if it's safe, if the building's been cleaned, where to work, are they being socially distanced, et cetera. And so technology such as IoT, sensing, our partnership with Salesforce and the Work.com platform is all helping facilitate this flexibility of having people come back to the facility and maintain their business continuity.
Sure, thanks for that. And Erica, once we have people back in the buildings, be it manufacturing, universities, or within regular offices or technology, what do you believe are the measurements that we need to be thinking about when it comes to the outcomes of work?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we need to start with a bit of how our customers think is in the workflows that an employee really has throughout sort of their daily experience. And Dave, I think it was great that you just mentioned a number of those, right? What is the experience and the necessary steps for me to safely enter my workplace? What are the necessary steps for me to safely find a place to work, to engage with my employees, to submit certain deliverables or create space again for collaboration? And I think as we think about each of those individual workflows, there's measurements that we have against certain outcomes, right? So safety, how are we maintaining social distance? What is the relative occupancy or utilization of space? I think around collaboration metrics, right? Where are we actually seeing different teams coming together, and how do we actually measure that? And then I think finally a really important one that we need to be thinking about in terms of measurement is employee sentiment. Like we started kind of this conversation, the world is in an uncertain place. And so how are we, through technology, actually able to measure more around employee sentiment and how each of these iterative changes we're going to have to be making to our working models, how successful are they? And how do we learn from them with each iteration to continue to improve the safety, the assurance that our employees are feeling?
And Alex, what are your thoughts on the safety and the iteration that Eric is mentioning?
Well, as Dave was talking about this new normal, clearly for us as as an application vendor, Salesforce, we saw an opportunity to leverage our technology to help businesses reopen safely. And to be honest, 7 months ago, I had no clue that you had a need for an app to do that when the pandemic hit. But we developed Work.com, and Work.com is really basically all the business processes to ensure not only business are executing this safe reopening, but also you have all the traceability and the compliance in the system to make sure you're doing things the right way, including training your employees and certifying your employees about the new practice of a safe workplace. And that's a new world. That's somehow an interesting new world. For example, you need to manage the flow in a building. You don't want 20 people in the elevator. You want 4 people maximum, given the size of your elevator, for example, in a Salesforce tower. Well, Work.com can issue boarding pass for you, so it manages the flow. There's not thousands of people showing up at 9, but there's just the right amount of people showing up at the right time in the right floor. Many other things, such as cleaning the rooms, you need to orchestrate the cleaning of the room after large meetings to make sure the rooms are clean and don't contain any risk. So all those processes are new business processes and now are part of the lifestyle of an office. And to that extent, the integration with smart buildings and all the technology that Siemens has to provide is very exciting, because the building itself is smarter. Now, the Salesforce Tower is actually a smart Siemens building. It knows who's on which floor. It can trigger things automatically, business processes automatically, because all the sensors can actually trigger the business process to ensure safety.
The new workplace certainly doesn't look like much of what we've come to know and love. The quick brainstorming chats, the informal discussions at the coffee machine or in the elevator, as Alex said, it means that we're, in an entirely new environment. So, question for Dave, what does the new workplace mean for company culture, and how is Siemens guiding its leaders to make sure that their employees have a real sense of belonging?
Yeah, great question, Tracy. I will tell you, there's a saying, with any challenge, creates opportunities. And I've personally experienced, and I know Siemens is looking at it this way as well, that the pandemic that we've been living in is actually creating an opportunity for us to improve our culture. And how this is happening is our new CEO, as of October 1st, Roland Bush, actually announced that we will be going to a permanent flexible work week. So 2 or 3 days in the office, 2 or 3 days remote. But what's happening, it's not all about safety. What's happening is we found out that for employees, it's helped them create a better work-life balance. They've had more flexibility in their life of when to come to the office, when not to come to the office. If they're working as an individual contributor and just working at their desk all day, there's no need to come to the office. But there's opportunities to come in and collaborate. So that's one comment on culture. The second comment on culture, in a weird way, this has actually brought us closer together. We're connecting, I think, more than we ever have. Now, it's different means, and maybe some people would argue there's too many meetings, but we're connecting with our people more and more via video conferencing, phone calls. We're having virtual happy hours. And it's really bringing our organization closer together, but taking a lot of unproductive waste out of that, with commuting and et cetera. And then the last piece of culture that we're really driving towards is we're not really going to measure people in the future on activities or if they're in the office or not in the office, but really more on impact. What's the impact that you're making to the company? So if you have a clear vision, you have a flexible workforce, you have good, strong work-life balance, and you're contributing and you're being measured on impact, I actually think this will improve our culture of our organization as we move forward. And I'm having similar conversations with CEOs, all over the world as well. And so with every challenge is an opportunity, and I think we need to grab a hold of this. One challenge is that I've noticed is with new employees. New employees don't have the relationships, so they're 100% remote. And so a little more effort needs to come into play there of bringing them into the organization, helping them network, within the functional work groups. But overall, it's really an opportunity for us to improve culture.
Agree, it's an opportunity. And over to you, Alex. Companies are facing this increased risk with respect to regulatory and liability exposure, particularly when it comes to sensitive employee data. This raises questions about data privacy and the connected workplace. And how do you think that we need to respond to that and help our customers respond to that?
Well, I think that's also an evolution of the world in the past couple years, which is what some people call the balkanization of the internet. But the fact that the internet is getting regulated in different countries in a more controlled way, and clearly, I think there is a lot of parallel in the safety processes we're discussing with everything vendors, global vendors like Siemens or Salesforce are doing on a daily basis in their core business. When we manage, for example, customer data for the largest healthcare institution in the world, we need to be compliant not only with local regulation like HIPAA in the US, but also the data residency regulations in Europe, like GDPR. And I think there is no finish line. I think we just saw the beginning. The world is going to get way more complex when it comes to data, way more complex in terms of regulation. And that's why actually the barrier to entry to deliver those new infrastructure is going to keep on getting higher. And that's for us when we started to work on this partnership between Siemens and SalesforceWork.com. We were starting from all the tools we had in our toolbox, and all the platforms we had were designed to be compliant and are constantly upgraded to be compliant with those regulations. In fact, as we speak, we already work on the next iteration of GDPR. We know that things are going to get even more stringent and complex in the future when it comes to data privacy, data residency, and architecture of information systems.
Definitely agree. And Dave, to bring the discussion back to a little bit more to the employee, so the entire work environment is changing. We need to be mindful of data privacy and our liability. What else do you think employers need to do to maintain the wellness that you spoke of earlier and their satisfaction with working with us in this new normal?
Yeah. I think come with all this flexibility and the fact that employees want to be remote and safe, but also come back and collaborate, it also comes responsibility for us as leaders. And humans in general like to be around other humans. And so I think the wellness of our employees, we need to make sure we communicate very closely with them. How are they doing? Is it working for them? You know, do they need more communication with the team? So this communication topic, I think, is extremely important. We can't take things for granted. Things will just operate and employees will feel like they did in the past. And I think this is very important, not only for performance of work, but also for mental wellness, you know, of how the individual is feeling. And we got to keep in mind, everybody is in a different situation. You have families with children, you know, at home. You have singles that live by themselves. You have people that are individual contributors, others that are more managers. And so this communication and this really utilizing technology to balance the flexibility of safety, but also the bringing together in a safe way to collaborate in a communicative way, I think is critical for the wellness of the employee.
I agree. Alex, anything to add?
No, I think this wellness topic is important because I think it's surfacing as we use the cloud to automate a lot of this new world, whether it's video conferencing, whether it's teamwork orchestrated through cloud apps, whether it's safety. We've now applications like Comfy that are connected to the IoT, who tells you exactly what to do and control the safety of your environment. But one thing that has clearly emerged over the last past 7 months of this new world, as you can see, a stress on the individual and the stress of not seeing each other socially, but also the stress of not learning from each other. And I think for me, the biggest element of this new world is we need all of us to reskill ourselves as leaders, as employees. And I think learning is going to be a big part of the next 2 years because we need to learn new skills. We need, like today, but we all learning new skills. We all learning new things. And I think, interestingly enough, emotional safety and emotional health is about learning new practices to work. So education is actually clearly part of that new world. I think the employees are stepping like the managers in a completely new world. We can see we're all learning together and being able to reinject a constant program of learning, of shared learnings back to the employee, like a program like today, is super important. I clearly see at Salesforce with our 50,000 employees, all the programs, all the learning we have on our learning platform called Trailhead has been super successful because people are our employees are in high demand of thinking differently, working differently, and reinventing themselves. I think that's clearly a big part of now a CEO's job. And I know Dave, when you and I talk to Roland, it's really on top of mind for him, which is how do I reinvent my company with this new way of working and make sure that I reskill everybody around this new world. It's hard at scale. It's really hard.
100% agree. Erica, any final thoughts from your side?
I think through crisis comes opportunity. And if I think about, the flexibility that we're seeing in more and more of how companies are managing their businesses and their employees, it creates a tremendous opportunity for us to be finding better work-life balance for our employees, creating more diverse teams, whether those be geographically, through skill sets, or through the actual make and model of our teams. And again, I think a bit to what Alex was saying as we think about how investments in technology today can serve very near-term critical value propositions. We're seeing tremendous innovation in this space that I think investments made today can really help support as our businesses evolve towards and through this new normal. And so to me, it's a very exciting time. And, obviously at Comfy, we're very pleased to be part of this partnership and continuing helping kind of solve these big challenges that we're all encountering as we go forward.
Dave, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, I would just, I would agree. For my side, final thoughts would be just let's take advantage of the opportunity that's recognized that it's a pandemic, but working together, utilizing technology, caring about the employees. I think we can get through this, and I think we can come out on the other end and have a better environment and a better culture than we did when we started. And I think, and I really believe, I think technology, like the Siemens Comfy Salesforce partnership, can help make it happen.
Thank you so much to the three of you for this great conversation and all of the insights. As we've just heard from Dave, Erica, and Alex, we need to create a new workplace that is safe and secure. Siemens and Salesforce join forces to create the safe workplace solution that helps companies and employees prioritize the health and productivity in the office. Now, I'm excited to hand off to LIESEL and Stephen to see how one company is using the joint solution to reopen and to help their employees navigate the new safe workplace.
My name is LIESEL KLOKKERS from Salesforce, and I'm joined today by Stephen DeLauro from Siemens to jointly present you our solutions for a new workplace. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, LIESEL. Glad to be here.
So let's deep dive into the demo. Stephen, why don't you take it away to show us the Comfy app within the Safe Work solutions?
Thank you, LIESEL. Let's walk through an employee's experience as they return to the office for the first time using both the Comfy app and the Work.com platform. Let's follow the journey of Stephanie, a sales rep at Pacifica Technologies. Her company has just recently reopened offices in her area, and they have a new process for getting into work with hers and her coworkers' health top of mind. To get her familiar with the new safety and health procedures now in place, Pacifica Tech sends Stephanie custom-built learning content on My Trailhead so she can better understand her new office environment and make sure she's taking the proper precautions before coming into work. These trails are easy for Pacifica Technologies to create and launch fast, thanks to My Trailhead content kits, where Salesforce has curated relevant content that admins can use as a starting point to customize and publish with just a few clicks. Stephanie is finishing up the last module in this trail, learning all about how business as usual has changed. She takes the quiz and earns her new badge and can take the next step towards returning to the office. Now in the Comfy app, Stephanie can now experience the return to work process using the office reservation system, where she can first come in and complete a pre-shift health survey. She quickly takes the survey, answers a few very customizable questions. Have you been confirmed with COVID? No. Have you had any of the following fever? No. And have you been in any regions affected by COVID? No. She submits her response, and what happens behind the scenes is this information is submitted to the command center in work.com for Stephanie to be approved to return to the office. When that approval happens, she not only gets a notification within the Comfy application, but also her experience within the app changes. She can now go ahead and begin to submit availability for the week of the 5/17. Now, because she can pick any day during the week, she can select her arrival time to make sure the office will not be overcrowded. She can even select the days of the week that she wishes to return to the office, Monday and Wednesday. She now submits that response for approval, again, by the command center and work.com. What will happen next is once that shift has been approved, of course, the Comfy app will notify her directly within the app. And again, her experience changes where she can now go ahead and view and approve the shifts that she's been allocated. Here are her 2 shifts, Monday and Wednesday. She can approve each shift and then view the entry pass. Notice how a pass is only granted for day of the actual shift request. A day of health survey is also required according to company policy. And here again, Stephanie must take a quick quiz to let everyone know that nothing has changed in her condition since she originally requested her shift. Once done, then Stephanie, of course, can view her boarding pass to make sure that everything is appropriate. Now within the Comfy app, Stephanie can go ahead, she can book a desk, and notice how Comfy can block certain desks from being booked to respect social distancing. Gray desks are already booked, teal desks are available, and Stephanie can now go ahead and book any desk that she likes. Let's switch over to LIESEL to see how behind the scenes the command center and work.com processes all of these requests from employees returning to work.
So let's have a look at this from the perspective of a facility manager, Andrea. Andrea has work.com command center right in front of her, and she can check on employee wellness, occupancy status, how many shifts have been booked, and also the latest from external healthcare organizations. This way, she can make great decisions on how to keep the offices running while always having health and safety on top of her mind. Andrea gets notified that the local health authorities have upgraded their COVID-19 guidelines. They recommend lower office occupation and also cleaning of highly trafficked areas. Andrea can take action right here from the command center to abide with these new regulations. From Comfy booking information and lighted sensors, she gets anonymized information of where the employees have been in the office and therefore can identify the highly trafficked areas. She can schedule cleaning teams going to those areas, making sure this is happening at times where these are not occupied very highly, so not to disrupt too much the office. The next thing Andrea does is to check on the shifts planned for next week. And she can see that the capacity is over the guidelines given to her by the government. She uses the rescheduled shift action to reschedule the shift, get rid of the excessive one, and her employees who won't get a shift are automatically notified explaining this situation. They might get another shift by the end of next week. This is how Siemens and Salesforce come together to embrace the future of work, allowing companies to orchestrate people, processes, and technology to create a future-proof workplace. Safe, effective, and productive.